Uh, Thank you, Michael. Um, you didn't spill any terrible. Yeah. And I want to thank CB for hosting this again. And I also want to thank all of you for all of the good work that you all do. You wouldn't be here if you hadn't identified that it matters to actually stand up and fight for what you believe is important. So that's nothing's better than that. When Scott invited me to talk, I was really not thinking it made sense for me to talk, and finally I agreed. I did not realize it was going to be the keynote speech, which was even worse. And I was thinking, like, what is it that I could possibly say as a white, male, older person, right? You run down through the list of privileges I have, and they're extensive. I'm not in a position of privilege in every situation, but in most in my life, I am. And so why would I be giving a keynote speech? I struggled with trying to come up with a good reason. And I finally decided that what I could share was what is it like to try to take yourself seriously as a leader, and while having that mixture of having experienced oppression in various ways, and yet also having a mixture of privilege. And I'm pretty sure looking out here that every one of us probably that matches that description. In some ways we have privilege. If nothing else, simply because we are not children anymore. And we've all experienced what it's like to be a part of an oppressed group simply because we were all children at one point, where we are not respected and treated as fully human. So, so I think that navigating how do we actually be effective in changing the world to be what we want the vision of the future to be, we smack right into like the limitations we carry as humans. And so that is something I've struggled with for a while. And that, as Michael mentioned, I decided at a certain point to kind of set aside being a business owner, and running a company to try to make a bigger difference than just 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 well-insulated houses a year. And like, how am I actually going to make a difference around climate change so that my grandchildren have a possibility of a viable future? And I was talking with someone about what to do, how to go about doing this, and actually having the conversation of, I'm a white guy, I'm a white older man, what can I possibly do? And they said, like, you just have to like not let that continue to be what stops you from taking actually decisive, powerful action. Like, where we have privilege can't be an excuse for actually not being as powerful as we all are. Like, that was basically bullshit, right? It was like, all right. And I had decided a while ago that, my first wife, I've burned through a few relationships, right? So I have made many, many mistakes in my life, right? And often you notice them in your close relationships, right? So in my first marriage with a very wonderful woman, we decided, it was 1985, we decided that we were given a little extra money. We were trying to build a house. We were living in a wall tent, the typical kind of back to the land hippie stuff, right? And didn't have 2 nickels. And we're scrounging everything we could to buy materials to build a house. And then my wife, we were pregnant right away. And it was like, oh my God. But my parents had said, we're going to give you a little bit of money and you cannot use it to build your house. You have to go on a honeymoon. I was like, honeymoon? Like, that's so bourgeois. But anyway, so we decided to go to Nicaragua during the war. And because I figured that was a place where someone might actually want to see me, right? That was somewhere I would never otherwise get to. And that was during when Witness for Peace was active. And it was one of the most humbling and encouraging experiences I've ever had in my life. The generosity, the kindness, the hope that every single person I met for the month that we traveled around that country, they just showed. They had so much reason, so many reasons to be bitter, angry, defeated, generations of crushing, brutal, and actively at that time, oppression. And that is not how they faced the world. They did not treat anybody in the delegation that way, ever. Not one person. It kind of occurred to me then that like discouragement, embarrassment, fear, fear of humiliation, those were actually luxuries that as Americans, especially white Americans, we just kind of sit in it. We think it's okay. And there's many reasons why we can feel like that is valid. But seeing folks who were vastly more powerful, vastly braver, and much more forgiving and kind than almost anybody I had ever met was just a great lesson and a great honor to have that experience. And when I sometimes struggle with like, what makes sense for me to do, I try to remember back to the people that I met who shared their stories and their courage and their kindness with me and everybody in that delegation during that month. Some of them were assassinated the month after we left because they had done terrible things like received a sewing machine from Switzerland and helped form a cooperative of other women in a village to actually sew clothes. That was their crime that our government organized to have them assassinated. So that, again, they were a testimony of courage, kindness, generosity, and just a refusal not to be hopeful, and then act on that. And I think that, so here I am, what do you do? I came back and I decided I was going to try to raise my family as best I could to make sure that my children were all as powerful as they could be, to see the world as clearly as they could, and to be, and parenting is like a, never-ending sense of joy and failure, right? So, yeah. And then, when that was kind of passed and I was kind of ready to take on something more, that's where it kind of occurred to me, my commitment to the future, which I can notice, the way which I often can notice it best is either through my children or through my grandchildren, but that's just a way to notice. I am like 100% committed to basically making sure that there is a good future. It can also be when I just see something beautiful in the world and I remember that I care about this. I care about it more than anything. So like, how do we then like act on our power? Like, we all are leaders, we all are powerful. How do we decide to like say, okay, I'm gonna like not restrict myself. I'm not gonna reduce my impact in any way. I will not let any self-doubt, any self-criticism, any feelings of superior or inferior, any of the ways in which we're a little like hold ourselves down, stop me from taking action and being as powerful and bold and as effective as I can possibly imagine, as I can possibly think of. And every day, all day long, I'm going to keep on thinking about how can I actually be bolder, show more of myself, reach more for community, reach more for the people around me, hold up everybody in their ability to be powerful and effective, and think as clearly as they can to identify what matters to them and then go for it. Like, no holds barred. Like, we got one, as far as I'm concerned, we got one friggin' life, right? Like, why waste it on doing anything other than the most exciting possible actions and things you can do? Like, that's fun. We got challenges surrounding us, right? But it's like, that's really cool. Like, no sense of boredom, right? And that, again, that sense of discouragement, I'm not suggesting that you take all those negative feelings and pretend they don't exist. Like, that is not effective. As a man, I can tell you, men suck at this, partly because like we just like, okay, we're going to get the job done. How do you feel? I don't know, but I'm going to get the job done, you know? And pretty soon we're going 180 degrees in the wrong way, just as hard as we can, right? and it's mostly because like it doesn't penetrate, you know? It doesn't penetrate. And I will tell you that when I decided to take on leading more visibly, I had a good dear friend say, if you're going to do that, you need to basically take at least 15 minutes every day where someone's going to listen to you think about what the challenges were of you actually being visible and try to figure out how to continue to go forward. Because all those feelings of being embarrassed, being insignificant, of making mistakes, you will make, as I'm sure you all know, 10,000 mistakes. Like, it just never ends. And the bolder you go in your thinking, the more you'll realize your thinking wasn't that good, right? But it's the best you had, right? And you won't find where it sucks until you try it out. And then someone's going to say, that was really not okay, you know? There's like, oh, damn. But, like, essentially, you're going to feel all those horrible feelings. That right now you may be comfortable enough that you're not feeling them as much, you know? You're going to feel the failures. You're going to feel the lack of making the level of change you want to. As Michael said, I am good at failing. Like, ran for state senate twice, lost twice. Ran for party chair, lost again. You know, decided to run for Congress. Decided to bail out after 11 months because, like, basically I had blown my life up and I wasn't going to be able to succeed if I'd even won the primary and make it going forward, right? So those are just the more visible mistakes. But it's like there really isn't any reason to stop, right? I mean, stopping going forward with everything you have is basically choosing death, right? It's like you're no longer actually working towards what you know in your heart is what you actually want. So I guess, so circling back to privilege. so I have so many privileges, and once you start hanging yourself out there, as I'm sure you all are and have, you start getting feedback of where your privileges, the way you act, the way you talk, the way you walk, what you think, start slamming right into where you realize that's actually either inaccurate or actually being experienced as oppressive, even if you don't think you're being oppressive. And because we are a mixture of having been both experienced not being respected ourselves, as well as then often in a position of privilege, when we get that feedback, we usually immediately feel like what it was like when we did not have privilege and power. And those are not very good guidelines of whether or not actually you've made a mistake that needs to be corrected, how you feel about it, I'm saying. Just like feelings of discouragement, embarrassment, fear are not necessarily very good guidelines in deciding how powerful, how bold we want to move in the world. Like, all those things will hold us back. So, privilege. So I've gone through 2 marriages. I have a partner right now. I would say every day it is pointed out where, in spite of my best efforts, my male domination leaks out. And sometimes my partner is willing to tell me, like, hey, you know, you're standing on my foot and you're telling me you're not. And I'm telling you, you are. And I'm thinking, no, I'm sure I am not. And it will sometimes take me days to realize I was wrong. And this happens every day. Right? Like, it's just frustrating. But all of us in our positions of privilege, that is what we face, is how do we keep on remembering to listen to, look at, think about, don't just blindly say, oh yeah, I'm not going to do anything because I might hurt somebody because I'm in a position of privilege. You can't do that because, once again, you're squandering your opportunity to make change. That's a cop-out. So, I don't know. I don't really have anything to say about, like, this is the solution, other than, like, you're going to have to circle back and actually have that team of people around you. If you don't have them right now, find them. Think about who you trust most, who you think is also doing the things you most want to be supportive of, and form a team around you that will have your back, you will have their back, you will listen to each other, you will cheer on our successes, we'll mourn our losses together. You can't do it alone. And it's all basically being part of a team where we care and love for each other, and we hold the expectation that all of us will be as powerful, as bold as we possibly can imagine every day. And sometimes that means, for me, caring for my mom. Sometimes that means for me personally, I have to get out away from everything and have a chance to remember how much I love this planet, how much I love being alive. But then coming back to remembering, that's why I'm willing to lay it all down. Like all of the rest of you, I know must be, or you wouldn't be here. And that is also true why, every other person on the planet that I can think of, when you actually get to know them, they are struggling as hard as they can also to do the best they can, even when sometimes their actions are abhorrent. It's like you still have to kind of hold out that for them as well. So I guess if I was going to say, how much time do I have? Plenty of time. Okay. So what I was going to say is that I think that I would like to have everybody kind of turn to the person next to them. I have a kind of a question. You don't have to follow the question, but I have a question kind of like, because I would not have decided to go wildly shred my life the way I did if I hadn't, which I don't. I have regrets about some of the impact, but I don't regret the decision to basically say everything is, all chips are on the table. Everything. I got nothing held back. Everything, anytime I notice I'm holding a chip back, throw it down on the damn table, right? And so sometimes things kind of get a little wild. But in that, I guess I'm just kind of saying, I guess I'm wanting to have an outside voice, because it helped me to have an outside voice at a critical point of saying you have permission to basically throw all down, be as visible, be as powerful, be as committed, be as passionately loving to the people around you, and as fierce as you possibly can imagine. There's nothing left to hold back for, right? And I kind of thought it might be useful to give a little airtime on also when we make decisions that are challenging our comfort zone, then sometimes we immediately also think of I don't know if I'm going to pull that off, and and it may be useful to kind of have a chance to strategize a little bit about what do you need to set up to have in place for you to be successful in actually accomplishing the goals that you might have identified either you're already doing or you want to stretch farther or take it a whole other direction. Whatever comes to your mind about this is what I want, what are things that are going to be barriers for you to be successful in that you already know are a struggle you have, and how to basically strategize how to get the resources around you to be able to overcome those. Because all of us have been around long enough to probably know, I totally suck in this area. It sabotages me every time I try to do this, X, Y, or Z. Okay, so then how do you actually get it so that you set up a situation where you're not going to fail? Or at least when you do fail, someone else is there to remember, to see, and to help you get back on your feet and try and think about it and give it another whirl. And take a different angle on it, whatever you have to do. So I'm going to do another 2 minutes each way, turn to either the same person or somebody else, and just kind of strategy about what is it that you think is going to prevent you from having the successes that you want next in your being as powerful as you can in creating the world you want. Cool. So I just wanted to kind of finish, I think, 3 different ideas I'd had earlier that I didn't mention. One is, in doing all of this, you may have already noticed, to kind of stay human, stay present, stay alive, you're going to have to cry a lot. Men, you're going to have to cry a lot, more than you possibly think you can stand. And you're going to have to cry a lot, all right? If you haven't got access to your tears, you should work on that one, because that will stop you from being able to do anything else well. And you're also going to need to be able to rage. rage about the injustices in your life, in the people you care about life, and in the planet. You need to find a place where you can like let that rip. So you don't have to do it when you're standing up in front of everybody, right? You know, sometimes it leaks out, right? Both, you know? I mean, you can, some of you just have to show really who you are, and that's going to end up showing that. But basically, like, that's part of what it's going to require for us to continue to be passionately engaged, is to let how hard it is, like, out. So the kind of like a guideline that sometimes I can remember is like think about what it is you want in your life. Then, you know, decide to act on your best thinking that you have at the moment, right? So think, decide, act, and then feel it. Feel like sometimes it's a celebration, like, freaking, I nailed that shit, right? That is awesome. And sometimes, like, I just, like, face planted. Terrible. You know, I'm utterly humiliated and I want to die. Feel it, because you're not going to be able to get back up again and try something again if you don't let yourself, like, experience just how rough that was and what mistakes you made, so you can actually try to do something different and better and change your tactic, change yourself. So think, decide, act, and feel it. Circle back again. Just keep on, you know, wash, rinse, you know, keep going. The other one is, the last one is that one of the phrases that has been helpful one time I heard is that I am completely incompetent and completely incapable of handling the challenges life places in front of me. Fortunately or unfortunately, I happen to be the best person available. And so if you start feeling like you're smarty pants, it's a really great way to remember, no, we all struggle here. So, but it's our life. So you get to do it. Thank you so much. And it's a privilege to be here, and an honor, and to be with all of you. And yeah, it's a great world to be in. Thank you.